everybody, and welcome to the Hype Train podcast. I'm Mike.
I'm Matt.
And I'm Corey, the co-founder of Dr. Robotnik's Mean Bean Chili Dog's Hedgehog Poison. Get rid of that hedgehog quick and fast. How's it going, guys?
Good. That one, I like that one. That one was creative. We here at the Hype Train review the latest and greatest in trailers for video games, TV shows, movies, what have you. And we are doing an interesting episode here. We are doing a video game episode, but there's a little twist in that everything here is either a remake, reboot, remaster, re-release, all that stuff. So I'm thinking... Yes. So I'm thinking we're going to remake our... Hype Train image here that everybody loves and watches. So we're going to put a new one up right about now. Ooh, it's so nice.
Oh, it's so gorgeous.
Oh, wow.
Even
Corey,
more
great
neat.
job.
So fresh and so clean.
Clean, yeah.
So fresh and so clean.
All right. So I believe we are starting out with Corey's pick for the remake reboot episode. So why don't you take it away, Corey?
Guys, the game you know and love is coming back on Nintendo Switch, PS4, Xbox One, and much, much more. Rediscover beloved 2D arcade-style beat-em-up game inspired by the iconic comic book series and movie with Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, the game Complete Edition. Guys, that was Scott Pilgrim versus the World, the game Complete Edition. Let's kick it to Matt, see what he has to say about this first.
Oh my gosh. Well, I guess before we start, I 100%ed the Scott Pilgrim game when it was originally on 360. So automatic hype for me, because this game's great. This looks to be a straight port. It's just the original game. Same visuals, same everything. It just has all the DLC. Yeah. Now, obviously, the game is more loosely based on the graphic novels than it is on the movie. So, but yeah, gameplay. So it's weird for me to be reviewing a trailer for a game that I've played every little pixel of. But yeah, it looks great. Kim Pine, #1. Yeah. Anamanaguchi playing in the trailer. I know Mike's gonna have some stuff to say about that. But yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm just gonna popcorn to him because game's great. Already know it's gonna be great. So
All right. As Matt said, Anamanaguchi is the name of the band they got to do all of the music for the video game. And it's such a perfect fit with the visuals and stuff of this game. And then diving into Anamanaguchi, the band, I basically got sidetracked for an hour while doing these notes of just looking up Anamanaguchi and all their music. So hopefully what you heard at the beginning of this episode should be Anamanaguchi's song, unless there's a copyright thing, but I don't think so because this was like a free album from a long time, from the MySpace era of things that I downloaded. That being said, this game I didn't get to play when it first came out. So it's awesome that it's getting kind of this another life on these next-gen systems that I have, so I get a chance to finally play it. It does look really great. The the side-scrolling beat 'em up thing. There's not a lot of new games that are doing that. Well, I guess there is a resurgence right now with like Battletoads and stuff like that of games coming out, remakes and stuff. It feels like around the 20-year mark for franchises is like, oh, let's redo it now because it just seems like it.
We've seen it. We've seen a few more recently than normal. I think because we had Streets of Rage 4 was released in recent months. Obviously, you mentioned Battletoads. Last year, we had River City Girls release.
Yes.
Scott Pilgrim, the game, is basically an unofficial River City Ransom game. It plays that similarly.
Okay. That was actually my questions about this because I never played it, and only going off this trailer, you get to see obviously the beat 'em up elements and stuff like that. My question was like, is there a story to this game in that as you progress level to level, there's like the story elements from the comic, or like or is it just kind of, I guess, random?
There's just little tiny like cutscenes after levels, and they actually show them a little bit in the trailer. Like it's very arcade style that way. It's not really. So good. It's presuming the story.
I guess the artist who did the graphic novels, Brian Lee O'Malley.
They call him Blom sometimes.
Oh, okay.
Blom. Brian Lee
so
O'Malley. Blom.
The game looks like it's pretty much exactly his art style, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's slightly more like chibified, but it's basically the art style of the comics.
Okay, because looking at like the Wikipedia notes I have from this game, Brian Lee O'Malley as well as Edgar Wright, the director of the film adaptation, were both consulted about this game in different ways, which I think is pretty cool because it's interesting that the comics are their own thing, the movie is kind of its own thing as well, and it has its fan base, and this game kind of puts together elements of both. It seems, especially with like just from watching the movie, I obviously the little bass solo part in the trailer, I know who those characters are and everything. But I mean, like, there's probably a lot of stuff from the comic that I might have not really understood, and maybe you guys got more.
Here's a little crash course on the development of Scott Pilgrim, the film and the book series, and this game. The game was released sort of as a tie-in to the movie, sort of to generate like cross-platform hype. This movie's coming out. We also have a game coming out. They don't do that as much anymore as they used to. But the game follows the comics more than it follows the movie, but it's really just a game. So it doesn't follow it very closely. It's far more liberal. But there are 6 Scott Pilgrim books in the series. Only one had been released when they decided to start making the movie. By the time the movie actually started production, only 3 of the 6 were out. So the movie features pretty much the plot of the first 3 books. And then Brian Lee O'Malley, the creator of Scott Pilgrim, served as a consultant on the movie and basically said, this is generally where we're going. So the movie is a faithful adaptation of the first half of the series and a pretty unfaithful adaptation of the second half of the series. So you'll recognize a lot of stuff in this game in the first half of the game because that's shared basically throughout everything in Scott Pilgrim. And you probably won't recognize as much the stuff in the latter half of the game because it's not in the movie. If that makes sense.
No, that's awesome. Thank you for doing that because like I was like, I want to talk about this game in terms of what it is for people that don't know. And I'm like, but I don't know. So I was gonna be like basically bull for most of it. But no, that's great. I'm glad you
literally wearing my Scott Pilgrim shirt that has like the Scott and Ramona sprites from the game right now.
Nice. Represent.
I was hoping you were going to say, I'm wearing a Sex Bob-Omb shirt, and I was going to go, 2, 3, 4!
With that...
I do have one somewhere.
With that, just my thoughts on the game. It looks awesome. The side-scrolling beat 'em up brings me back to when I was a kid. It's probably a perfect fit for a game like this. Super hyped for it. Finally get a chance to play this game after missing the first train, and now I get to jump onto this one. So with that, I'm going to popcorn to you, Corey. Go ahead.
I don't have much to add, guys, which is why I immediately threw it to Sanford and Fernandez. Yeah. Sanford and I, at least every 3 months since this game, since the new console system we're on right now, almost every 3 months are like, do you think we're getting Scott Pilgrim this year? And it was finally, surprisingly, the worst year of history, recent history.
It's interesting, if I can expand on what you just said, Corey.
Yeah.
It's interesting because there are these cult games where there are always clickbait articles like maybe this year we'll finally get a remake of X, or maybe we'll get it of Y. And we're getting a lot of those actually now. I think maybe because of the 98 Degrees reunion tour. I mean, obviously these things had to have been in the works since before then. I think projects are getting delayed and everything. So they're like, let's just finally do what everyone says we should do, because we're getting this game. We just got the Tony Hawk Pro Skater 1 and 2 remaster. That was one of them. So now all we need is for them to do a remake of The Simpsons Hit and Run, and I'll finally never see any of those clickbait articles. All right, everybody. So in honor of this being the remake, remaster, re-release game, instead of Boom or Bust, we're playing a new game called Respect, or just a little bit, about whether we're hyped to see this game get a re-release, remaster, or remake. But I want to go last on this game, so I'm throwing it over to Mike first.
Yeah, respect from me. I'm very hyped for this. Corey, what about you?
Oh, yeah, major respect for this one, because like we already said, we've been talking about this game getting a port or a remaster or a re-release for years now. So now that it's finally happening, Big 10. Sanford?
Yeah, respect. All I'm asking is for a little respect when you come home. I'm very excited that this game will finally be out. I might actually have to wait a little longer to get it, because Limited Run Games has been teasing that they'll be making physical copies this time, but they haven't actually officially said anything. And so maybe if a physical copy comes out, I can let my 360, that has the game downloaded on it, finally die. But yeah, super excited for this game to be back.
Yeah.
All right. Once again, Scott Pilgrim versus the World will be released this holiday season. Go check it out. So let's go on to the next trailer here. Matt?
Yes.
This is your pick.
Okay.
Why don't you take it away?
Yes. So, as everyone knows, the hype train goes back in time with our flux capacitor that we stole from this crazy wild-haired guy in California. Before that was invented, they had other ways of going back in time. Maybe a dagger, perhaps. Why don't you shift back through the sands of time with the remake of Prince of Persia, The Sands of Time?
Most people think time is like a river that flows swift and sure in one direction. But I have seen the face of time, and I can tell you, they are wrong.
Inside the hourglass is a marvel no living man has ever seen. Only the dagger can unlock the sands of time.
No! Stop!
No! Father! I saw my father turn to sand.
You cannot defeat this enemy. The sands will consume everything.
Come with me then. but I warn you, I move pretty fast. You'd better keep up!
Prince! The dagger! It can turn back time!
Give me the dagger!
Never! I brought this on us.
You are brave and good.
Don't let go!
Kako lukiem.
All right, everyone. That's Prince of Persia: The Sands of Time remake. Mike, what did you think of Prince of Persia: The Sand of Time remake? Which I guess is what they're officially calling it. Bizarrely,
Ugh.
I don't know.
So I do remember playing this probably like once or twice. I feel like I rented this game. I didn't own it. I know like this franchise has a weird following. There was a movie with Jake Gyllenhaal that did terrible that I never even saw or had any interest in seeing. It's weird because I'm like I don't really know of a huge fan base for the Prince of Persia games, but I guess this game was well received. One of the cool little facts that I found was that there was a How It's Made episode where they did video games, and the making of this video game is featured in the How It's Made episode, and some people even say that it's cited as the reason why the Prince of Persia series kind of had a return into the gaming world, because the first Prince of Persia, I forget what they call those types of games, but it was a old like Apple computer game.
It's a cinematic platformer.
Cinematic, thank you. Cinematic platformer. That's what I was looking for.
Like
I'll throw
sort
up
of,
some things of that though.
Like Another World is another really famous one.
Yeah.
Called Out of This World in America until it was re-released.
I've never really liked those games just because they're like puzzle games. Essentially, it seems like.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And they're because of like they put a lot of stock in the animation of the characters and everything that they do. It feels slow to me. Because like I can play a puzzle game. There's puzzle games that I do like, but for whatever reason, the cinematic platformers, like if I'm playing a platformer, I want to be jumping, running across the screen and trying to, either Sonic or Mario, trying to get to where I'm going. And this, you have to think, you have to plan out, even though I never really played it, but from looking at it and seeing those types of games, I just wasn't a fan of those. The Prince of Persia Sands of Time was originally a reboot of the Prince of Persia franchise itself.
It's actually more convoluted than you're saying, if you could even believe it, because there's Prince of Persia. Prince of Persia: The Sands of Time is a reboot of Prince of Persia. There's a game from 2008 just called Prince of Persia, which is another reboot of the series, rebooting basically after the series of games that Sands of Time started. And Assassin's Creed was basically sort of not really a reboot, but it was supposed to be a launching off to another franchise off of this game series. So you have like 4 game series basically all like tangled up in each other.
So you couldn't have picked a better game for the reboot remake episode because of how much this has gone through.
Because it's a remake of a reboot that's already been rebooted and spun off of.
I never really was a huge fan of this series, but I totally see that. Like, I can see why people are, and I could see it having a big following. So I think there are people that are probably excited for this. I probably won't play this though, to be honest with you. It looks like a big effort though. There was a trailer. I'll show up a video and put a link to it because this is someone else's work, not mine. But they did a side-by-side of the remake and the original game next to each other, and you could see how much work they put into this, where they redid the game, and the music and the voice acting and all that stuff, and it looks really good. So that's what I have to say about it. I guess we'll popcorn to Corey. What do you think?
All I have to say is, where's Aladdin and why isn't it Aladdin? So it's hard to associate a theme like this and not like have it tied. And Fernandez and I said this a little bit in the trailer when you guys didn't hear it. Have it just tied into my brain that's like, oh, this is an Arabian setting? Nah, this is Aladdin, and there's magic and genies, and that's just what it's automatically going to be in my brain. I, too, played this game when I was a young, dumb kid, and which I'm not smart by any means now, but I'm not young either. And, like, my experience was just...
You're less dumb.
Yeah. My experience was just like, why do I have to go back and forth with the time? Why can't I just hit everybody? Why am I getting hurt so much? What's this sand stuff? And then just being like, I don't like this game. And then just like shunning it to the nether. So while I do think that the graphics look much nicer than they used to, and like the voice acting, like Fernanda said, and all the love and care that went into this game, it's just not whatever. I'm not in whatever audience they're trying to find. Like, I know a lot of people our generation do have very fond experiences of this game. It's just not me being one of them. So I don't really have much to say on this one, like I did the last one or the one that will follow this one. So popcorn to the Sandman.
Mike and Corey, basically, you guys covered all the general stuff about this game and this remake. The main reason I wanted to talk about this game was Game of the Year in 2003. That was before Game of the Year was as ubiquitous as it is now. This game won Game of the Year from a lot of publications. I remember I still got EGM at the time. I remember in early 2004, they did their Game Awards, and then I turned to the big spread for Game of the Year, and it was Prince of Persia: Sands of Time. I'm like, oh, for real? Was that really the best thing we got this year? Here are some games that Prince of Persia: Sands of Time beat out. Star Wars: Knights of the Old Republic on Xbox.
What?
The Legend of Zelda: Wind Waker. This game is made by Ubisoft. So Ubisoft's own sort of like critical darling, Beyond Good and Evil. And then Splinter Cell, which isn't super popular now, but it was a big thing then. And Soul Calibur 2. So those are all games that this game beat out for Game of the Year, which I was like, okay, yeah, I haven't really played this game, but I just have a hard time believing that Prince of Persia: The Sands of Time is better than all of those games. So I guess I really just wanted to bring that up. And I wanted to ask you guys, one, what do you think about that? The fact that Prince of Persia won pretty much the most Game of the Year awards in 2003 over those titles. And is there any other time where sort of like something lauded as Game of the Year just made you sort of raise your eyebrow?
Yeah, I think Game of the Year is a title that you get by throwing enough money at whoever runs that thing. I've always thought that was a crock. Just hearing that the Prince of Persia: Sands of Time beat out not only what was the first one you listed?
Knights of the Old Republic.
Yeah, which is like one of the most well-respected Star Wars games in history at this point. But Legend of Zelda: Wind Waker, which is also like a lot of people's favorite Zelda game, is just nonsense and nauticals to me. So I don't know. Like, I mean, whenever I see Game of the Year editions, like that's how I'm like, oh, this game got Game of the Year. Like Fallout 4 has a Game of the Year edition, and I'm just like, oh, this won a Game of the Year. Did nothing else come out because this game is buggy and glitched and flawed. And that's coming from a fan of the game. Like,
yeah. I think in Fallout 4's case though, they're just claiming to be Game of the Year, and they didn't necessarily win that many awards. This won quite a few Game of the Year awards.
That's what I'm saying. Like, what does it mean in video games to just be like Game of the Year? We won Game of the Year, and then it's like, well, you didn't, but it says it on our box. Mm-hmm. See the box? So I don't know. Fernandez, do you have any thoughts?
I completely agree with you. That was kind of my point too, was just seeing so many games with a Game of the Year edition that I'm like, really, that like it does raise an eyebrow sometimes, as you said, Matt, but like I wrote it off already as like, oh, well, games just do that and throw Game of the Year edition versions. But
the thing,
I know. So what I'm getting to is, though, that like this game did win a lot of awards, like legitimately from critics in these magazines and stuff. I'm trying to think in 2003. I mean, like there must be something in this game that is really great that I don't remember or didn't get to in the game because it didn't have, like, I rented it once, like I said, once or twice maybe, but I didn't want to complete the game enough to keep running the game. So I don't know. There must be something there that fans of this franchise get that I don't get, and that's fine. There's so much stuff out there that people are fans of that I'm not, that I'm sure that this is maybe as good as, you know, maybe it's is as good as the Zelda games or the Star Wars game, and I just don't see it. So
you brought up two things that I think are important. One, despite the fact that I'm the only one who hasn't played this game, I think I have an idea of what that thing could be. And I think it is that this game, it goes back to what you said before. I think it goes back to that this game is sort of the blueprint for the modern action, you know, character game that we have now. But there are so many games that are out where it's like, okay, you're an action hero, but you have this one ability, like Infamous, you know, it's like you have your one power. There's a lot of action games that come out where it's like, okay, we have this cool combat and you have one interesting power that we developed a lot that you can play with. This game is sort of the prototype of all these sorts of games that we have coming out now. So that might be it. The other thing I wanted to hit on is the difference between a game being received positively in its day and its legacy, because clearly this game was really successfully reviewed when it came out, and it still has a fan base. But I think the fact that it sort of dropped in sort of cultural consciousness compared to some of the games I listed goes to show that sometimes games aren't remembered as fondly as they were when they were released, and sometimes games are remembered more fondly than how they were. Like, The Wind Waker was really controversial when it came out. It doesn't necessarily surprise me that Wind Waker wasn't winning Game of the Year, because people were like, well, it's a kiddie game. Like, it's cartoony. The cel-shaded graphics for Wind Waker, a lot of people were really upset when it came out. Now everyone loves Wind Waker. But yeah, like, so I think that's an element too.
I agree with you, because I'm just like, you really got to put yourself back in that time. And it's almost like, because it doesn't just apply to video games, as you're saying. Like, think about movies, and I call it like the cable guy effect. Like, Jim Carrey's The Cable Guy came out, and people hated it, right? Because it wasn't what people were used to with Jim Carrey. And looking at it now, I love The Cable Guy. I think it's a great movie. And it's kind of a darker movie, comedy.
It is unsettling.
Yeah, but you know, now it's a little better received than it was then. And with Wind Waker, it's like, oh, this style of gaming that you guys changed, or this style of Zelda you guys changed, is not what we're used to, so we don't like it. But then, you know, people after a while were like, actually, this is a really great game. So the effect isn't just in video games. It's like the reviews reflect the times, you know. So it's interesting that, and it's a good point that you brought up. So with that, how about we move on to the respect, or just a little bit. Matt, you go ahead.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and give this a just a little bit. I don't think I'm necessarily interested, and I don't know that any new audience is going to be interested. So I'm going to go with just a little bit.
All right, Corey, what about you?
Yeah, just a little bit for me as well. I am interested, though, to see if this does well enough to remake the sequel, Two Thieves or Two Princes or whatever it was called, that I know everyone hated. So yeah, just a little bit for me. No part of this is what I want.
Yeah, I agree. Just a little bit from me, and the only reason is, as we were talking about, the reviews reflect the times, and I think that at the time of 2003, Prince of Persia: The Sands of Time was ahead of its time, and now, being 2020, it will be behind the times. So that is why I think it's just a little bit. Still respect, a lot of respect for what this game was and the impact it had on gaming today.
Right.
So that's why we're not boomer busting. That's why we're still giving respects, but just a little bit.
Yeah, but just a little bit.
All right, Fernandez, why don't you take us home with your pick?
This is a remake and remaster and re-release of 3 games here. Mafia Definitive Edition.
All these guys in this room, they're here because they have the only thing that matters to me. The only thing that should matter to any of us. You know what that is, Tommy?
They're loyal.
That's right.
One day you're busting your back, doing an honest day's work in a city that's been trying to scrape you off its heels since the day you stepped off the boat. And then next you're stuffing your pockets full of Salieri's dirty money.
Go get him, Tommy!
Teach these boys a lesson. Break every bone in their bodies.
You want me to become one of those Wall Street boys?
Don't sass me, Tommy. I'm trying to teach you the ropes, so you don't get strangled by them.
Now you stay straight with me, you're gonna be living the high life, Tom. You abuse my trust.
Don Salieri, you won't ever need to worry about me.
Okay then. Welcome to the family.
That was Mafia Definitive Edition. Yeah, I think the going trend of this episode has been the guy who picks the trailer leaves it to everyone else first. So I'm going to popcorn it first over to you, Corey, and why don't you tell me what you think?
Of all the trailers that we've picked today, this is the one that I am most hyped about because while Sanford and I do share deep love for the Scott Pilgrim game and series and comics, this is something new that I'm excited about. Like, I've played through all of Mafia 3, and I loved that game to death, but what I always had heard about it was, oh, well, this is the best one because they used this kind of play style, and they didn't really do that in 1 and 2. So the fact that they're remaking basically 1 and 2 and then doing more stuff with 3 and then bundling it up in a nice, tight little thing is very exciting to me. The trailer seems cool, and I'm not one to really get into the whole, mafia, mobster, gangster scene. Like, it's not my least favorite genre of thing, but it's definitely not my favorite. Like, I'd play it before pirate games because pirate games suck, but
except the Wind Waker, as we discussed.
That's different. That's a Zelda game. That's different. So
you're kind of a pirate.
I don't, like I said, all I really have to say is my experiences with Mafia 3 were so good that when you picked this trailer and I got to see it, I actually watched it a few times to be like, oh wow, this is oh, look at that, and there's that guy, and he didn't like that he did that.
It's surprising actually because I didn't know that you had a love for Mafia 3. The only reason I picked this was because I also only played Mafia 3 and liked it so much. I wouldn't have thought that you would be excited for this as you are. So
yeah, because the little research I did back when I was playing Mafia 3 was like, yeah, I mean, the people who made 1 and 2 also helped write 3 as far as I remember. And so, like, if how good the story was in 3, like, backtracks to 1 and 2, then it's going to be a flawless game. And if you add those mechanics, the open world, the collectibles, the gunplay, all that stuff, and just push it backwards, I think it could be a really fun time. That's all from me. So, Sanford?
Yeah, so the trailer is interesting. On its surface, it's like trying to take a Godfather sort of thing and make a video game around that sort of thing. If you think about it, that's really hard to do as far as like crime games are concerned. Grand Theft Auto sells trillions of copies, but the story in Grand Theft Auto games never really sort of tried to emulate sort of the classic crime drama in a way that Mafia is going for. But that's all surface level. The thing I find most interesting about this is if you look into this game is a complete reconception of the original Mafia game. like totally from the ground up. New actors playing the characters. They completely redesigned the game's setting.
I am going to put up a link to the description to this actual video. Again, someone else did the work of putting side by side the original and the remake. And you are right. The amount of work in this remake of redoing the whole city that is called Lost Heaven, which is based on 1930 Chicago, it looks amazing. And they redid the music, the voice acting, just kind of like what I said in Prince of Persia. But this looks very extensive. But continue, Matt. Go ahead.
Yeah. So I just thought that was interesting. Prince of Persia. It's like, oh, here's this game that people love, so we're gonna remake it. Here's this game that people loved, so let's do it right. Dang it. Like they're completely. It's a completely different level of sort of remake. I'll point out that this game is not made by the team that originally made Mafia 1 and 2. It's made by Hangar 13, the team that made Mafia 3. That's really all I have to say. So, Mike, why don't you tie it all together on this game?
Yeah, I think both of you have solid points. I mean, Matt, you haven't played these games. Corey, you played Mafia 3. Like I said, I have also played Mafia 3. Going through, I mean, the footage that I am putting up here with, like, the side-by-sides, you could totally see the amount of work put in, because the original one was very barren. There's no, like, backing music tracks. I mean, Mafia 3 definitely does play a kind of like GTA, but like you said, Matt, putting it into this gritty, real crime drama setting kind of puts a different element on your gameplay, because it makes the stakes higher than in GTA of just like doing whatever you want and blowing stuff up. Like, you actually have a real goal, and you feel a part of this the crime jobs that you're doing. I don't really have that much else to add. My last little thing here that I did want to say, because I was looking for it in the Wikipedia notes to make sure I wasn't wrong. Corey, what you're wanting out of the first two Mafia games being like the Mafia 3, they are importing the way the guns work and all the different mechanics that were from Mafia 3 and putting them in this new version of Mafia 1 and 2. Yes. But they will still have for people that are fans of those games, a classic mode that you can revert to play the way those games were
that is
when
dope.
They first released. So they really did
it's very interesting.
Yeah, they did a real fan service for this game. So a lot of care went into it. So with that, I guess we'll move on to the respect, or just a little bit. So I like your musical way of doing it more, Matt, than I do, but it's okay.
Well, because the respect, or just a little bit.
I don't know what you're referring to. I thought we made this up. Corey, what about you?
Yeah.
Oh, big respect for me. I'm super pumped for this game, so I can't wait to see how well it does. Sanford?
Oh yeah, respect for this. Just not in a bad way. The sheer audacity of doing this. The idea to do this. Usually remakes are thought of as safe. They didn't want to go safe with this. They wanted to swing for the fences. So you got to respect them for that.
Yeah,
Mike.
Yeah. Mad respect, respect for Mafia Definitive Edition. This is scheduled for release this month in September of 2020.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it'll be out just a few days after this episode is released.
So Get it now or later, or whenever you're listening to it, or maybe you already have it and you're not listening because you're playing Mafia, which is also fine.
Or maybe you're listening to this after society has collapsed, and you're just gnashing your teeth and wishing you could play Mafia, but you can't. So sorry.
Oh, flawless.
All right, Corey, take us home.
All right, guys. Thanks so much for tuning in. Thank you for liking, commenting, and subscribing if you did. What episode. We talked about the past, we talked about the future, but always remember that you're living in the present. So make sure to take care of yourself. Make sure to take care of your friends and family if you want to. You should. You don't have to. but it's a nice thing to do. You know, here at the Hype Train, Fernandez and Sanford are both shining beacons in the community as far as doing good and being good. I'm kind of the other side of the scale, but, you know, thank God I have friends like them who are out there doing good things. If you have friends out there who help people, work at charities, hospitals, vets, anywhere, drop a comment down below and let us know how they make the world brighter in their everyday lives. Guys, always remember to be good to yourself and be good to each other. And for the hashtag Hype Train, I'm Corey.
I'm Mike.
I'm Matt.
And we will see you guys on the next ride.